Awesome. Thanks, everybody, for being here. I'm Jess Fredican, and I'm really excited to be here and have the opportunity to talk to the community about product management for platform engineering. And I'm also very excited now that I don't actually have to talk to you about platform engineering, because talking about technical things in front of a room of engineers really makes me nervous. So first, a little bit about me. Very early in my career, I was an engineer for a couple of years, and while I decided to move into product management pretty quickly, it left me with a passion for working with engineering teams and for advocating for the value of the work that they do.
One second. I can't hear you as well.
No.
And I broke it. See what happens? That's why you shouldn't allow me to do A/B. Just put it, there we go.
There we go. All right, I've been an engineer, but I'm not. But I'm still really passionate about working with engineering teams. I've been in product management since before there were schools to teach you how to do it. And I've worked on a lot of enterprise products like insurance marketplaces and real estate marketplaces, as well as in ad tech and customer servicing platforms. But most relevantly, over the past couple of years, I've been managing teams of product managers who work with platform engineering teams and SRE teams, first at Capital One and now at Flatiron Health, which, if you're not familiar with us, we're a health tech whose mission is to improve lives by learning from the experience of every cancer patient. So I was inspired to give this talk after coming across this pithy tweet on Twitter one day in my feed. I had just moved to Flatiron Health to build out a team of product managers for our platform engineering teams, and was starting to see a lot of kind of growing momentum in the industry and in the Twitter sphere about product management for platform engineering, because it's not traditionally a space where product managers have really been. When I first started doing product for our platform engineering teams at Capital One, I got a lot of questions like, why does that even need product managers? It's just engineering work. It's not like there's a product. It's not like you have like users or anything. But it was pretty clear to me that there actually is a lot of value that product management can bring to platform engineering teams, the products they build, the engineers that use those platforms, and the organization as a whole. What really struck me about this tweet was the candor in expressing the challenges that platform engineers might face in making that transition to being a product team and thinking about the work that they do not just as a series of technical tasks done behind the scenes, but as a product with customers and material business impact that happens during the day. I know a lot of career platform engineers haven't worked with product management teams in the past, so let's level up on what product management actually is. Product managers don't do anything, by which I mean, yeah, you know that. We don't write code, right? Like, we can't actually build anything, most of us. We don't create designs. We don't do marketing plans. It's really about how we think about problems and how we interact with people. So product managers take a customer-focused approach to solving challenges for the business, because we believe what's good for user is good for business. So if we can solve a challenge for the user, that'll solve a problem for the business. And we use that customer focus to set a strategic vision for where we need to go and what we need to build to get there. So we think about setting the vision for how the product is going to differentiate itself and uniquely solve challenges for our users. And we do that by aligning closely with our customers through talking to users and getting direct feedback and doing kind of broad market research. And it's a lot about getting alignment on that vision and leading development teams and stakeholders along the journey to get there. We set that strategic vision both internally and externally, because different disciplines have different ideas about where we should be going and what we need to do, right? Like, design might feel that we need to redesign a flow that's really kludgy for users and is causing a lot of friction. But marketing might feel like we need to spend a lot more time thinking about our in-house advertising so that our users know kind of a lot of the value that we can bring to them. But product sits in all the middle of that and is looking out kind of horizontally for what's best for the product and what's best for the user. So not being too focused on any particular discipline, but looking more broadly at the user needs enables us to look at all of these vectors and prioritize the right thing to attack at the right time. We often use the metaphor that product is the hub of a wheel, right? We're the center of all of these different spokes, like marketing and design and engineering, account management, and we keep everyone rolling along the same path. But what is a product? So a commonly used definition is that it's a combination of a customer need where there's a business opportunity to solve it with technology. The technology piece is probably pretty intuitive for platform engineering. But while these platforms aren't being used by external users, you still have customers. They're the engineering teams who leverage your platforms to build and ship and operate their code. I think too often with internally consumed platforms, organizations neglect that there are actually customers who are our colleagues. And they are really valuable customers because there is real business impact to the success of these platforms. The reliability of your organization's features, the success of deployments, the speed and ease of feature development can be largely dependent on platform engineering tooling. We know reliability is one of the most important features of any system, and it can have material impact on customer retention and engagement. Kludgy platforms and lack of observability can add up to wasted engineering hours that could have been spent on delivering real value to customers. Too often, organizations treat these and other internal products as just a series of technical tasks. But platform engineering products solve customer challenges that are building out and shipping and operating those customer-facing features for your business. Product management and engineering bring different strengths to the table, and we bring them together to build the best possible products. So this is often expressed as the why versus the how. Product asks what we need to build, who we're building it for, and when's the right time to build it. Product's accountabilities are around what are the customer challenges we're facing, what are the business opportunities that can be solved for, basically the strategy for how we'll meet a business opportunity. And in this relationship, engineering is the masters of how we meet those needs, what technologies we apply to implement our strategy, and how long it's going to take. Product should never really be telling you how long you need to build something. The confluence of these two disciplines is what actually gets built in product development. And so we're most successful through a deep collaboration between product and engineering in a unified product development team. We each bring our own areas of expertise, but that area of overlap is our shared output. And in an ideal state, your product manager is sharing enough business and user context with you so that you can leverage your technical expertise to figure out the best way to solve for that high priority need. So as an example, your product manager might say to you, we're hearing a lot from our users that mobile deployments are really annoying and they keep failing and they're kind of hard to make work. But there's a big business push right now to deploy a lot of new features to our mobile channel. So stability of our mobile deployment pipeline is really important right now. We need to get to a 95% success rate for those deployments. So then engineering has the opportunity to think through some ways that we might be able to achieve that and estimate how long that's going to take us. We add a lot of value to platform engineering in a lot of ways. I think the first big way is in gathering requirements, figuring out what all the different teams are, our users, and the different products needs from your platforms, and make sure you have all of the critical use cases covered. Whether they might be languages you need to support or deployment patterns. If you've ever deployed something to your organization and then eventually heard grumblings that it wasn't really working for people and they didn't want to use it, you know how important this is. Product can help by conducting user interviews and identifying needs with your actual users before you actually write any code at all. And once your platforms are out in the world and being consumed, product can help aggregate and synthesize feedback about what's working and what could be improved, where the next opportunities might be. And they can help you get feedback early and often in the development stages, so you can get feedback on work while it's still in a prototype or maybe in a limited beta, while it's still relatively easy to make adjustments, and ultimately enable you to ship more value faster to your customers. And we use all those requirements and feedback to make sure that what you're building lines up with the right corporate goals and solves the problems the business most cares about.
A good product manager is going to be tapped into corporate strategies and priorities. We keep our heads up on that horizontal view and don't actually do anything so that we can kind of keep our heads up on what's happening in the market and in the organization so that we can prioritize the right stuff. For instance, if an organization's really focused on reducing OpEx, your product manager might want to focus priorities on how your tooling can help contribute to that. Other times, there might be kind of larger goals around speeding time to delivery for features, and that'll inform kind of what the priorities are that you work on. Product can also be really instrumental in making sure that the value of your work your team is doing is broadcast across the organization. So it's really heard and understood by everyone. We're the voice of the product and evangelist for its value, not only with other engineering teams that consume your products, but also the product teams who need to understand the value of what your team's doing and understand why they should prioritize upgrades or other things you might be asking their team to take on. We're also really instrumental in broadcasting value to leadership and other business stakeholders who might not be super technical, but care that your platforms impact teams' ability to deliver faster, more reliably to customers. So what can you expect with working with a product manager? They probably won't be as technical as you, and that is okay. We're just technical enough to hold a conversation and know how to prioritize work. We're bringing a different skill set about frameworks for prioritization and nuances for communicating with non-technical stakeholders. One of the ways that we communicate at a macro level is through a product roadmap. It's a high-level directional view of what we want to learn and accomplish, typically over an 8 to 12-month timeline. It's not a strict project plan that you're being committed to, but again, it's kind of a directional view to express product strategy, both internally to the team and externally to stakeholders. Another way that we communicate at a more micro level is through user stories. Maybe you're using these already with your team, but they're a way that product expresses and aligns with our engineering teams about feature requirements. So a story will outline who the primary user is, what that user is trying to accomplish, and why they want to accomplish that. So here, the who is a newly hired SRE. They want to be added to PagerDuty automatically because they want to dive right in and help their team respond to incidents without having to remember to do this manually and figure out how to do it. And the why is really the most important part of the user story. It's that context on the business and the user need so that engineers can make good decisions about how to tactically solve for this in a sustainable way. And you'll notice that this is super high level, right? And there's not a lot of hard written requirements. The idea is that we're taking a user-focused view of what we need our systems to do, and it opens up a conversation that we can figure out as a team together exactly how to execute on this. So this will eventually get filled out with some more acceptance criteria about exactly what done is going to look like. But this is really kind of the starting place of the conversation between product and engineering to make sure that we're meeting user needs. Product managers ask a lot of questions, and we can sometimes be annoying in the number of questions we ask. You might be familiar with the 5 whys from postmortems. That's something that's very dear to us because we're trying to get to the heart of a problem and make sure that we're solving the right problem. Because if we're going to ask you to spend time working on something, we want to make sure that it's actually the right thing. It's also one of the best ways for us to learn because we're usually the least technical person in the room. And while we may be more technical than a lot of other product managers building consumer-facing features, there's always stuff for us to ramp up on, right? Engineering is not our full-time job. So having conversations with product manager, for us having conversations with engineering is one of the best ways for us to learn. And it's also a really great way for us to build rapport so we can have more effective conversations about what it is we're trying to accomplish. One of the most important things I coach my product managers on is that they are the poop emoji umbrellas for their engineering teams. They are the front line for feedback, for complaints, for squeaky wheels, corporate indecision, meetings that could have been an email, so that engineering teams can focus on the hard work of delivering great technology to the business. When we decide as a team what the priorities are. We make sure that they don't get changed unnecessarily, or we're not just prioritizing a hippo's pet project that doesn't maybe add a lot of general value to the business. So asking those annoying questions helps us make sure that we can manage that poop emoji a little bit better on your behalf. Expect that product's going to come in and want to take a leadership role in helping shape the work that gets done and when it happens. They need to have ownership and accountability to that, because they're going to be accountable back to the business to make sure that what your team is working on is lining up to business goals. Thinking back to that Venn diagram of product owns the why and the strategy, they're going to own prioritization because they're accountable to what it means that, that work is done and that user needs have been met. So make sure that you include them in emails and decisions and requests for your time. It's super important so that they have kind of all the context that they need to make good prioritization trade-offs. Which is not to say that product managers are gonna come in and take over everything. It's a partnership. Product managers are not dictators. So we sometimes use this metaphor in product management that product managers are the mini CEO. But a good CEO is not a dictator, right? They offer strategic guidance and they advocate for the product. So bring expertise on how to solve the challenges that product's raising. Ideation and prioritization is a two-way street, right? It's not all just product filtering down stuff that comes from the business. You have this critical role of raising up your technical expertise for what your products might benefit from. So collaborate on building out that roadmap about what needs to get built when, and share that information both ways. While they're going to share context with you on what's happening in the business and other product teams at large, share context on kind of what's happening in the tech world and technology decisions that are being made elsewhere in the organization. One of the most collaborative relationships I had with my engineering teams was I was an IC product manager at this healthcare startup, and we were building doctor finders for health insurance companies. And I was talking to my engineering teams a lot about our struggles with our search, and we were getting a lot of complaints from clients that search didn't work, and we were seeing a lot of failed searches in our analytics. And when we started to dive into that, we were starting to see that our customers were searching for things like ENT and eye doctor, and those were a lot of the things that were failing. And then it kind of made me realize that, well, this was happening because we were beholden to our health insurance's taxonomies for what specialties were. So our health insurance taxonomies had specialties like otolaryngologist, which, if you don't know, is an ENT, and an optometrist. But no human is searching for otolaryngologist. And then as we were considering whether or not we should be upgrading to the newest version of Solar at the time, my engineering lead mentioned to me that this new version supported synonym search and that we could use ENT and optometrist as synonyms and then map that back to our health insurance company's taxonomy and enable users to actually search for things the way that they use, the way that they speak, which was a huge win for our customers. Sounds great, but do you really need one? It depends. I have to say it's really satisfying to get to say that to engineers for once. So if you have centralized teams building out platform engineering tools for your organization as a whole, you could really benefit from a product manager. Because in this model, you have that crucial component of technology and business impact and customers. If you're small and teams are managing their ops and you own that on yourselves, you probably don't need a product manager specifically for platform engineering. Teams are solving their own challenges for themselves, and you're kind of missing that crucial component of having a customer. But even if you're just building operational work as part of feature delivery teams, get your product manager involved in that work, because he can help inform decisions about when's a good time to make those operational investments and when is a good time to kind of acquire a little bit more debt so you can ship some new features. I definitely have done this wrong in the past as a product manager. In that same startup, I definitely had my team in death march to features. We were kind of, in that typical startup mode where you're trying to ship stuff really, really fast, and sales keep selling stuff that doesn't exist, and we're kind of pushing and pushing out new features. And teams were getting kind of grumbly about it. And then one day I walk into planning, and my engineers were like, Fredican, we are not working on your backlog this sprint. which was super telling that they were like, this is your backlog. They said, we are going to add some monitoring to this platform, and that is that, and like, we will see you next sprint. Which like ultimately was a good call on their part, but we could have, done that a little bit more healthily, and maybe not gotten to that point where they just like completely committed mutiny. So having conversations both ways can really make sure that you don't get to that point where you're like ready to blow up your relationship. So once you decide you need a product manager, you might run into some challenges that leadership doesn't really intuit, that you are building mission-critical products and not just a series of technical tasks. So you might get some of those similar questions about why you need a product manager if there's not a customer. So you need to paint a picture for how important this is to your business. And to do that, you want to pull some data about how your platforms roll up to your corporate mission. Talk about what you think you can achieve by having a product manager and how that can help keep you better connected to the mission and make sure that the work that you're releasing, it aligns up with goals a little better. And you might want to give an example of maybe how that hasn't gone well in the past. And point out that you have a lot of customers because other engineers are your customers, and your work impacts their ability to deliver work to external customers. So once you have leadership on board, a couple of things to keep in mind when hiring your first product manager. There's a temptation to have them roll up into engineering, but your product manager is going to be more successful if they report into a broader product team if you've got one. It's going to help them stay connected to business priorities and kind of what's happening throughout the rest of the organization. So you'll want to figure out who's the right person for them to roll up to. But you also want someone who's a little bit senior. Not so senior that they can't step in and do a little bit of work, but senior enough that they can handle walking into a role that's not going to be super defined for them. So pretty tactically, that probably translates to someone with like 4 or 6 years of experience working as a product manager. And when you're evaluating people, you want them, again, to be technical, but not super duper technical, right? You don't need them to know how to write code, but they need to be able to have a conversation with you about tech ecosystems. You might want to do like a high-level architectural diagram or kind of like technical flow to make sure that they're aware of major elements and kind of how they work together. I'll say that as product managers, we often feel like we need to write code to be technical, but I think you probably have some experience that just like doing a MOOC once on Python doesn't necessarily make you technical. I found that can be a helpful indicator that they're going to write really good user stories and write them out in a way that's kind of really logical about how you might think about executing on them, but isn't necessarily a great tell that they're going to have the kind of technical expertise that you need. I really loved this quote from a paper called SRE Tools as Products. It was written last year by Joan C. Smith, who's an SRE at Google. I love her reflection on how changing about thinking about SRE work from a series of technical tasks to thinking of it as platform engineering products has had a big impact on the SRE teams working in this model and the teams that use the platforms they support. Because fundamentally, whether or not platform engineering tools are in a position to sustain their own product manager or not, implementing some of those same principles about customer focus and strong vision on how to serve customer needs more broadly than a series of technical tasks will enable platform engineering teams to have a greater impact on their engineering users, their external customers, and the business as a whole. Thank you.